Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about action heroes. I'm excited to welcome special guest John Davis, the corporate action hero. He's a comedy, sword-fighting, stuntman college professor who speaks to companies all over the world to empower their teams to awaken their inner action hero to achieve more. He's also entertained soldiers overseas in places like Iraq and Afghanistan on 6 USO tours, just like Bob Hope used to do during World War II. So, John, I would like to start by thanking you for your service.
Oh, well, thank you. It was the honor of my life. The only difference really between me and Bob Hope is that I did it while wearing tights.
Oh, well, that and he's dead, so there is a difference
right.
there.
There's a big difference there, too, yeah. Little one.
You did it while wearing tights. Okay, so describe your outfit. I'm kind of excited.
I took my comedy sword fighting show over there. Now, to be a sword fighting show, you have to have context of why you're fighting with swords in the first place. So our show was based in the Elizabethan era. So we showed up in Iraq and Afghanistan wearing tights and flouncy shirts and swords, and we did whips and beds of nails, and we brought other comedians to do juggling and ladder walking and fire eating, and we basically brought a 2-hour comedy circus kind of show, but all of us were wearing Renaissance-style clothing. And the biggest fear that we had, of course, was our helicopter going down and being suddenly finding ourselves in an Iraqi city wearing tights.
Yeah, that could be the downside. So fortunately, everything was okay and it was peaceful circumstances and you didn't get called out. I thought you were going to say you were wearing your Superman outfit with your underwear outside your tights, kind of a tights, but no, it was a Shakespearean look.
That is superheroes. There's a difference between superheroes and action heroes. Superheroes do wear their underwear on the outside of their pants and were irradiated by some sort of goo. And action heroes are ordinary individuals who create super results.
And you get to wear the underwear on the inside?
On the inside, yep.
That is another advantage. Okay,
right.
So you are an action hero, a normal person who does action. That's fantastic. So you're positive and you're funny and you're upbeat and you're doing all these awesome things. And if someone were just to look at you and to talk to you, they might think, man, your life must be a breeze because you're funny and you do all these awesome things. And the truth is you've had a lot of hardships in your life and have been kind of some defining moments. In fact, you had a serious back injury that left you paralyzed for a period of time and changed your world. Do you want to tell us about that a little bit?
Absolutely. When I was a young man, I really wanted to be Errol Flynn. I was the kid with the stick in his hand with a sword and pretending he was Robin Hood. And by the time I got into my 20s, I wanted to be a stuntman and a fight director and do sword fights for a living. And I met 2 of the top fight directors of the world and was well on the way of doing that. And a buddy of mine asked me to come out to help him unload his van, which was full of boxes of clay. He was a professional potter. He had these 80-pound boxes of clay. And I got out there and I climbed up in the van, and the first box I picked up I didn't even get through any of them. The very first one, I turned to set that box outside of the van, and my spine split in 2.
What?
Literally, the upper half of my spine disconnected from the lower half of my spine, and I collapsed. They picked me up. They took me to the hospital. The doctor said, Mr. Davis, you have a condition known as spina bifida occulta, to which I promptly said Gesundheit. I had no idea what he was talking about. Basically, what it meant is that 3 of my vertebrae right above my pelvis never formed properly at birth. And this day, with the extra 80 pounds and the twisting action, I literally just disconnected the upper half of my body from the lower half of my body and pinched off my spine and couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And doctors told me that day that they weren't sure whether I was ever going to be able to walk again. And even if I was, that I probably would never have a physical career, that stuntman dreams were over. And using a lot of what I call my 5F system, mental achievement, is what happened was I was able to bring myself back, and I went on to do over 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows all over the world, including the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan, as we've said. And also, I've worked in films. I've climbed Mount Sinai. I climbed Machu Picchu. I've been in 30 countries around the world doing very, very physical things, and all because I took control of my own destiny.
Well, we definitely need to learn the 5 Fs then. Will you please share those?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The 5 Fs they're based in hacking your fight or flight response. So it's about getting past your fears. And the first of the 5 Fs is fearlessness. And you can't talk about fearlessness without talking about what fear is. And when I ask audiences all over the world what fear is, the room always goes silent. Nobody has an answer. And then somebody in the back of the room says, false evidence appearing real. Right? Because you hear that one all the time. False evidence appearing. I don't believe that answer, though, because when you actually look at fear from a scientific point of view, fear is simply an emotional reaction to a future event that may or may not happen with you focused on a negative outcome, because you wouldn't be afraid if it was a positive outcome. So fear simply is negatively focused uncertainty. And so couple things in that. Fear, and there's a lot of things I can talk to you about the spiritual aspects of fear, because I'm a student of all religions in the world too. And Buddha says the secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear. So we start with our fear process. Now, most people, when they get in fear, they don't know how to break out of their fears, because they literally declare themselves as being in fear. And when you're in something, you can't control it. So the first thing you have to do is recognize that you're in a fear. And the easiest way to do that is first, are you in a negative state of mind? Or are you scared of something? It's very simple, right? So once you recognize where you are, you label it, it's suddenly external. You're no longer in it. It's now something you can control with your mind. So then at that point, you have to think about, how do you break the cycle? And we all have a primal response that we have that are based in the fight or flight responses. Whenever we have a fear reaction, we gasp for air. We go, right? And we breathe in all this air. Most people don't feel like they can get a deep breath when they're scared.
Right.
And the reason is not because they can't get air. It's because their body is conserving air so they can run further and faster. Their lungs are full. That's why they can't breathe. So it's not that they don't have air, it's that they have plenty of it so they can run further and faster. But the way you get out of that response, the first thing you do is you exhale, relax all your muscles. And what that does is it shuts off the fear response and turns your cognitive thinking brain back on. And actors, like on Broadway, they're trained, if they forget their lines, they're literally trained to exhale, and all their lines rush right back into their head. Because when you're in a fear response, what happens is your brain actually says, we need to survive, and nothing else matters. So by shutting off the response, you can turn the brain back on. So the first element of fear, first of all, recognize it, and then let it go, release it. And it's easy to release because of the fact that, as I said already, it's not rooted in your present moment. It's an emotional reaction to an uncertainty. And so it's not here right now, so you don't have to give it power. So that's the first element of it.
Wow. Very insightful. Okay, I can't believe that there's 4 more to go. Bring it.
All right, here we go. All right. Fearlessly focus. The second was focus. When I was on the front lines of Iraq, I said to the soldiers, how can you go into a situation where you know you might get shot at? And they say, well, they actually said, we actually relax and exhale. They actually said that. But he said, but it's also, we have an objective. We have something to focus on. So we're going to fearlessly focus. They have something to focus on. When you're a stuntman and you're on top of a tower getting ready to jump off, you're not focused on the tower. You're focused on where you're going to land. You're focused on the positive outcome, as opposed to crashing and dying at the bottom of the tower, right? So you want to stay positively focused. Here's the interesting thing: is your focus determines your attitude. So check this out. So have you ever bought a car?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a certain kind of car you liked before you went to the store to buy it?
No, but I think I know where you're going with this, so keep going.
Okay, so if you chose a car consciously, your subconscious mind would start to show you that car by saying, hey, there's that car.
Uh-huh.
So you're driving down the road, you'd start seeing that car everywhere,
uh-huh.
Right? It's the reason why negative people are always negative, because they're consciously choosing negative, so their subconscious mind is feeding them negative. But that's an endless loop, because the subconscious mind has 2 parts. It has the part that feeds you what you're focused on, and the part that collects the memories of present moments. And so if you're consciously staying negative, you're creating a subconscious belief that's negative. And then you're that next negative thought, your subconscious mind is going to show you the next negative. Does that make sense?
Totally. So the thing that you're describing is a part of the brain called the reticular activating system that's a filter. So all the information that's out there, it's estimated that we get about 11 million bits of information per second that is coming at us, and we can only consciously focus on like 40. So that reticular activating system helps to focus. Let's get rid of anything that's not important. Let's just pick the important. And we choose what the filter kind of parameters are by what we're focusing on. So it's like, okay, like your car example, it's like all those cars were there, but until you're focusing on it, your brain says, that's not important. Leave that out, leave that out, leave that out.
Right.
So like you said, if we're focusing on negative, our brain says, oh, that's important. That's what you're looking for. Okay, well, here's some negative and there's some negative and over here's some negative, and then all the good things that are out there, you don't even notice. Your brain says, that's not important. So I'm with you. Woohoo!
I broke it down to the 5 Fs because I studied neurolinguistics and hypnosis and various other brain science technologies and systems. But I find that if I break it down to 5 Fs, I can break it down to be very simple.
I love simple.
Understand and grasp, right? So get fearlessly focus. And that focus, as I said, is important because you're really staying there. But that focus does not give you the outcome until you put the third F in.
Okay.
And it's if you look at the number 5, there's one letter that's in the middle that holds up everything else, and that's faith.
I love
belief, confidence. Now, many people find their faith in their spirituality. Some people just find their faith and they had good leaders and parents who gave them self-confidence. But that faith, that belief in your outcome, that confident belief brings you your experience. Now, I'm sure you've got you just said it earlier, the conscious mind. We're right here, right now, right? There's only one moment you can think, do, or say anything. And it's only the present moment. For me, lying in a hospital bed, I could not take the belief or the faith that the doctor was trying to give me. I had to take my own faith of I'm going to be a stuntman. I'm going to do the things that I want to do with my life. And so on that day, that present moment, I just started stacking successful, positive present moments. So I stayed very positive, but I had to have faith that I was going to have the outcome I wanted. So once I started stacking successful present moments, each one of those successful present moments got stacked into my subconscious mind as a successful, positive present moment. Now I'm starting to just, right here in this moment, stack these small moments, and they're pushing all that other experience out of the way. And now because I'm focused positively here, it's showing me positive, which means I'm stacking more as positive, and I'm creating a whole different outcome. The struggle that I see is that people sit here in this moment, and they look at where they want to go, and they think, I have to get to that. And that's not the way the brain works. The way the brain works is that is coming to you based upon what you do here and now in alignment. That concept of getting to somewhere that you'll never get to, the future is, when you experience that future outcome, it'll be in your present moment when you finally experience it, right? So it actually has to come to you. Well, the way it comes to you is by stacking present moment successful moments and having them in alignment with that, so it draws to you. A lot of people in life think that struggle equals growth. I don't believe in that either. I believe that I could do small things easily and make sure they're going towards the goal. The tough part is that, and it takes us to the next of the 5 Fs, because we get this fearlessly focused with faith. Tough part is the follow through, which is the next one, following through. You actually have to take the action. The tough part is that when we lose faith in the concept or the outcome that we're looking for, we don't take an action. We drop into another fear, and we get into that space of inaction and stagnancy because we're not putting faith in our outcome. We don't have enough faith to actually put action behind our belief. And so we've got to put that faith really solidly there and put that action forward. And so if I see somebody who's not moving forward, the first thing I ask them is, what are you afraid of? What's going on? Because if you're afraid of something, then you need to exhale, all the way through your whole cycle. Just go back to the first F. And the other thing is the 5 Fs are not linear. They're just constantly there. And you have to, for each new circumstance, you're going to have to, am I in fear here? Am I focused right here? Am I following through it? They're all happening at once. They're simultaneous. So you just have to keep reassessing your process. And the more you stack these present moments, you go on to do the things that I've done, which, 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows in 30 countries around the world. And, on the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan, climbing Mount Sinai, blah, blah, blah. All those things happened because I stacked present moment successes, and I believed I was going to achieve them. And once I believed it, the next thing was actually even easier. The last of the 5 F's is flexibility. Because anytime you're going for a goal and you're trying to achieve anything, something is always going to come up to say that you're not going to get there. There's always going to be something that seems contrary to the outcome. And if what I said is true, and your subconscious mind is showing you what you're focused on, and you're focused on an outcome, and something comes up that seems like it's going to stop you, it's because your subconscious mind is showing you something that needs to be addressed to get to your outcome. So rather than giving up at that moment or allowing it to derail you, you just say, oh, this is something I need to focus on, and then do the small things that alleviate that problem. And so, but you can never lose focus. You can never lose focus on the outcome. Because if you are consciously creating, and that's what I call it, consciously creating here in this moment, your subconscious mind is going to help you. It's like your partner in success. And that obstacle is a gift, because that obstacle, the subconscious mind is showing it to you, because that'll either be incorporated into what you're doing, it'll be removed from what you're doing, or just completely disregarded. Okay, that's no longer important. So you have this new mindset of any obstacle is just part of my process. And people go along in this process, and sometimes they're doing the small steps, and then they themselves mess up. And they'll have a small moment where they mess up. And the first thing they do is they go, I'm so dumb. And they smack themselves on the top of the head, right? That's why I went bald. But the thing is I had to change that too, because I am is what Moses said God's name was. And Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. Moses talked to the burning bush. The bush said, I am, right? So anything you put after I am is what you're asking God for, what you're asking the source for, whatever your spirituality is, you're declaring in that moment. For me, spirituality, in my spiritual beliefs, I believe if I say I am this, I am asking God for something. And God, as Jesus, do you mind if I go there?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Okay. Jesus says, whatever you ask in God's name is granted, and then Moses said, I am. But the interesting thing is the quote that I just said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted, it's the next line that's the better line. And the line is, nothing will be impossible for you. Nothing will be impossible for you. And I am living proof of it. I mean, there is no way that I should have been able to do 4,000 live sword fighting stunt shows.
No.
I still have the same back injury right now. But I did 4,000 live comedy sword fighting stunt shows. I'm 57 years old, and I have done amazing things in amazing places, only because I kept my own creative juices in the moment with my source, my consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. I look at it from that perspective. What's really cool is you find that same philosophy in all religions in the world. There's a universal truth that's in all religions in the world. And Jesus and Buddha and Krishna, they all like, yeah, this is it. This is what we're doing, right? You get to do this, have this experience. And so for me, the 5 F's really came down to me working through my fear, leveraging my present moment, keeping faith in my outcome, and acting upon my faith. And then in acting upon my faith, even in times when things didn't seem like they're going right. And what happened is I got everything I ever wanted. I mean, I've worked with movie stars. I've really done crazy things in my life.
Oh, that's fantastic. You have so many beautiful nuggets. My brain is just turning with all these things I want to keep and just grow. I loved how it's interesting in your 5 F's that everything kind of includes that concept of the outcome. And I would say even there's a little bit of future, another F if you want to add it in, that hope for a positive future. And boy, that's something that we need so much right now, is hope for a positive future. And I also thought it was, please go ahead.
I want to tap into that, because one of the things that I had to do in my life was I had to really assess what I was saying after I am. And I actually took certain words out of my vocabulary. And the words were wanting, needing, hoping, and trying. Because none of them are creative in the present moment. All of them are focused on the fact that you don't have. And so for me, I couldn't get into hope because it meant I didn't have it. It wasn't happening. So instead of focusing on hoping, I was focusing on I'm creating. I am flexing my muscles today to get a stronger back. I am becoming a stuntman. Much more creative in my thought process. I don't believe in affirmations. I believe in declarations.
Wow.
I declare things and I step forward. Because I believe the word affirmation in the present moment believes I'm trying to shore something up that's not solid, to affirm it, right? And I don't believe in focusing my attention on things that aren't solid. I believe focusing on things that are very solid. So I just declare things. In the words of Yoda in Star Wars, do or do not, there is no try. Right?
Well done.
So thank you. He also said, fear leads to the dark side.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did.
Wisdom through Yoda. He really
Absolutely.
is a master.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love finding wisdom wherever it is. I loved your comments about choosing what to say and what words not to say. And the words you chose not to say are different than the ones I was thinking. Because a lot of times in our self-talk, the words are very negative and the I am is followed by I am not good enough. I am stupid. I am fill in the blank. And it's most of the time something negative and self-depreciating and something that pulls us down. And in a creative process, if that is what we are asking for with our faith, that I am asking God to make me a failure or not good enough or stupid, that is very, very counter to what positive things we want to change. So watching our language is a big deal.
Well, and what's really interesting is when I work with corporate clients, a lot of times I work with leadership teams. And one of the things I do is I buy them little tiny digital voice recorders. And these things record for 20 hours. I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn it on and put it in your top pocket and just go about your day. And at the end of the day, I want you to go back and I want you to fast forward through and I want you to write down all the things you said about your present moment. And they found out how fat they were, how lonely they were, how poor they were. They found out all these things about themselves. What they also discovered is they say worse things about themselves than they would let anybody say about anybody else.
So true.
They beat themselves up worse. Now, all of that negative self-talk is because of past experience, because of that subconscious belief. A lot of that comes from the fact that, like, people who are in lack mode, like, for instance, myself, my grandparents lived through the Depression. So my mom and dad had lack mentality because their parents passed down lack mentality, right? And they were passing it down to me, and I was able to break that cycle. You know, I'm a very well-paid speaker now, right? And it's because I was able to switch that cycle in my brain. If you want to look at it from a spiritual principle, you know, Buddha and Krishna, all those guys talk about being present. But Jesus, in the Bible, it says you must be born again, which means start over. Get rid of the stuff that's behind you. Start something new. You know, create a better life, a better motion. And so that subconscious belief behind you only changes by you changing your present moment. So you've got to negate what's behind you that's negative, start stacking those present moments in there and changing what's behind you so that you're now creating new and fresh and positive.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And that idea of letting go of the cycles behind us. I've just been reading a book called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin, where he talks about how we inherit those generational traumas or issues, like you mentioned, the depression or other issues. Maybe if my grandmother lost a daughter, got hit by a car, and those kinds of traumas, those things can stack up and we can be carrying them and not even realize it. I love the idea of, okay, let's let that go. Let's live in the present and let's create a future rather than cycling through the past.
Right. Well, it's like I've said a couple times, I've done a lot of really great things in my life. I am the product of, first of all, of serious back injury. But before that, I was the son of an alcoholic abuser who had 7 children, and I was the one he didn't like. And so I had very low self-esteem, and I was very much a very depressed and lonely and introverted child because of the fact that my self-esteem was not ever developed. I had to settle that down too. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because, I mean, I was a quiet kid, and now I have no problem walking on a stage with thousands of people in my audience and talking to them for 90 minutes straight all by myself.
Brilliant. That is so brilliant. I love forgive me. As we're talking about childhood and growing up and those kinds of things, those experiences that we have that are real, you don't have to pretend that it didn't happen. They're real, but they don't need to define us for life. We are allowed to grow out of that. In fact, our lives and the people around us are all better off if we choose to grow out of it.
Right. Well, it's so interesting because the back trauma, I'm so happy that it happened because I've done so many things because of what I learned from that experience, right? With my father, I'm so happy that it happened because I'm a much better father to my son. You know, I've chosen not to give my son the same experience I had. You know, I don't drink alcohol at all because I don't want to have that experience for my son. You know, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do any of those things because I don't want my son to have the experience I had. So you can take your past experience and turn it into a better, because you've got to realize the present moment is the only creative moment. It's the only moment that exists. And it doesn't matter who you were. It only matters who you are.
Ooh, words of wisdom. And that wasn't even from Yoda. That was from John Davis. It was amazing. I loved it.
Thanks.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So from our past, we have the opportunity to learn and to become better because of it. Whether it was a positive or a negative experience, we can still turn that into something positive for ourselves, like you have done in becoming a better father for your children. And you have broken some cycles and created new, beautiful things. Well done.
Well, thank you. I'm very proud of the fact of where I'm in my, and I've never been happier. You know, the other thing is when you get firmly and fully present, you suddenly get to be your authentic self. And when you're truly your authentic self, what's interesting is I know a lot of people who want to find a loving relationship, but they'll say, I said, so how are you doing that? And they say, well, I'm going out to the bars and I'm looking for whatever. I said, so did you go to the bars before? They said, well, I'm not really a bar person. I said, so you're not being yourself. You're going to someplace that you would never go to meet people who like things that you don't like in hopes of finding a loving soulmate, someone who's going to love you unconditionally. The only way you find someone who loves you unconditionally is to be you fully, because they can't love you for you if you're not you.
Right.
So, yeah, and so you need to go do the things that you like to do. Don't worry about finding a relationship. Go do the things that you like to do and talk to the people who are around there doing the things you like to do. And I'll bet you strike up a conversation. I'll bet you find somebody you really like. And next thing you know, I'll bet you find out you're in a great relationship.
Ooh, I like that. And it's an interesting approach because I was expecting you to say about being your authentic self first. And it is, but in the context of what you're doing and who you're meeting. But also as we fix ourselves, we're not looking outside for that partner to fix us or to give us all the love that we or think we're missing, to be that loving, awesome person. And then we attract the people that are that good match for us.
Right, exactly. And you know, it's interesting. If you go into a relationship and they want you to change drastically, it's not because they love you, it's because they don't like you. They don't love you because they want you to be something different. So you have to literally be you and to find somebody who loves you unconditionally, because the fact that they want you to change is the condition. That's the condition they're putting on love.
Right. And I think you can look at that both ways too, in that if you're looking for someone that you want to change and turn them into something that you think is a good match, then you don't really love them. We need to love people as they are today in this creative moment.
Absolutely. And like I say, be yourself and express yourself fully in your present moment. And then you have the opportunity to meet people who love you for you. You know, and this, you know, the 5S, I talk about the 5S. One of the things that I do in one of my corporate speeches is I choose the most timid person I can find in my audience. and I bring that person on the stage in front of a big audience, right? So now they have a big fear.
Oh, yeah.
And my job as a leader is to guide them through my 5 Fs. So I bring her on stage, and the first thing I say to her, I said, thank you so much for coming, and I give her all this positive reinforcement. I turn to the audience and say, isn't she a rock star? And the reason I did that is because her fear is their judgment. And by having them say, no, she's a rock star, I just negated the fear.
Wow.
Right? So I've negated the fear. So now I say, I get her into a non-confrontational, non-dangerous, non-fearful conversation. I talk about going fishing. And we just start talking about fishing, which is usually a calm, serene sort of thing. I said, so today, I'm just going to teach you the best way to cast a fishing rod. She says, okay. And I hand her a bullwhip. Right?
That's where your whip comes in?
That's part of it. Yeah,
okay.
I do a lot of fancy stuff with the whip. So I hand her a bullwhip, and she says, she has that immediate fear response. I said, it's just a bullwhip. It's the same, it's just a fishing rod. It's the same action. Don't worry about it. It's not, you're fine. And then I said, we're going fishing. I turn to a part of the audience and I say to that part of the audience, I have them put their hands under their chin and make a funny face with their mouth to look like a fish. And I have a whole section of the audience looking like a fish. I say, just look over there, choose which fish you want to catch, and cast your fishing rod. Now, what am I doing? I'm keeping her mental state in funny, laughing. She's laughing at the audience who's got these giant fish faces at her, keeping her in a positive state the whole time. I said, just cast your fishing rod. And she cast the fishing rod, and the bullwhip cracks because it is the same gesture. It's the same exact thing. It's crack. Oh, my gosh. I said, catch another one. Crack. Catch another one. Crack. She cracks it 3 or 4 times. Then I say, did you hear it crack? And she's, yeah. So I said, so you heard it crack? Yeah. I said, so you already know how to make it crack. And I do a hand gesture in front of her. I go, I said, you heard it crack. I give her positive reinforcement with a head nod. I do a hand gesture, and I say, so you already know how to make it crack. And what I've just done is I've just dropped a neural anchor in after a hypnotic wipe. The wipe takes away any of the process of negativity or trying to learn that skill. And I wiped it away, and I anchored the new thought, which is you already know. So I've just shortened her learning curve from learning the skill to knowledge of the skill. And I do that in
magic.
Seconds. Magic. So she's great. I said, so all I want you to do now, and I reach in my pocket and I pull out a target and I hold it out in my hand. And what's the next thing that happens?
Oh, fear.
She has a new fear.
I'm going to hit you.
She's going to hit me, right? So I look at her square in the eye and I say, I promise you're not going to hurt me, right? Now, she could hurt me, but I also have complete faith that she won't, because I have done this thousands of times and never have been, right? Because I know if she gets fearlessly focused on where she wants to hit that target, and she has belief in it, which I'm giving her all this positive reinforcement and belief, fearlessly focus, with faith, all I got to do is to get her to take an action. What happens next is she takes the action, she cracks the whips and takes the target out of my hand without hurting me.
Magic.
Because I've given her the belief, right? Where the flexibility came in is when the target came out, I brought out something that was an unknown. And so she had to keep her flexible in that moment. Just by saying, I promise you won't hurt me, I negated the fear that came up with the moment of flexibility. So I took her through the 5F process. The thing is, when you're leading somebody through something stressful, you got to realize it's their experience and not yours. You're leading, not dragging. So you're not trying to drag them somewhere. You're trying to meet them where they are and bring them along, because that's non-confrontational, that's non-fearful. And so the process works really well because of the fact that it stays positive and works against fear and builds up faith. That's why it works. Magical.
And I love the idea that leadership is not draggership.
Right. It's not draggership. Exactly right. And, if you're trying to drag people along, you're actually not meeting them where they are. Because I was working one time for a company, it was a bank, and they were merging with another bank. And the one bank had a system that was much better than the other bank. And one of the things I had to do in that moment was I had to convince the people at Bank A with the better system not to expect the people at the other bank to have their system right away. Meet them where they are and bring them along, and don't judge them for not knowing, because of course they don't know, right? And the whole fear process is being negated, saying, oh, I see where you are. And the best way, if you're dealing with something like that, is to say, I remember when I was where you are in this process, I remember exactly how it felt. So if you can get that camaraderie going in those kind of situations, you've now created a much more positive experience and possibly a friend for life.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well done. Wow. Here's to making friends for life, even at the bank.
Always. Oh, especially at the bank. You can, make out that way.
Make bank. Love it. Well, that's magical. Well, thank you for all of the wisdom that you've shared and all the wisdom that you have accumulated so that you can share it. That is beautiful. Thank you for
Thank you very much.
what you've done and who you are.
It is my passion in life to spread this. And because of that, I want to make sure your audience gets my 5F workbook, which is my free gift that I give to all podcast audiences. But I want to say this. I said the word free, and my word is good. I do not sell anything on that link, nor do I even ask for an email address. I collect no data when you get this book, and you just go there and download the book. The only thing I ask is if you're on my site anyway, look around. You're going to find out that I do a daily vlog. Every day I put out a small piece of motivation based upon a quote that I find inspirational. And so every day, if you just want to tap in and see some little bit of motivation, go there and check that out.
And you're going to tell us where that is?
Yep. It's actually very easy. It's corporateactionhero.com/gift.
/gift. Okay. Beautiful. And I'll make sure to include a link in the description as well. That's perfect. Great. Oh, John, thank you so much for being here today. I was going to say you're one of my new heroes. So action hero or superhero, whatever hero. Is your underwear on the inside? I guess you're an action hero then.
Well, thanks to Zoom, I don't have to tell you.
True that. Okay. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by Maya Angelou. She said, "I think a hero is anyone really intent on making this a better place for all people." Today, I invite you to awaken your inner action hero by doing one thing to make things better for the people around you. See you next time on Linda's Corner.